Hello and welcome to my practice today. I'm somewhere a little bit different because I'm going to share with you a mindfulness practice today. So we're going to sit anywhere that you find, and we're going to pay attention to our surroundings, and then we're also going to pay attention to the sense of touch and awareness of our body in space. So first thing to do is choose somewhere to sit. It doesn't need to be outdoors. I've got the luxury of being able to be outdoors in the forest today. And I've picked myself a little tucked away corner where I hopefully won't get disturbed. And I'm going to be able to sit peacefully, and I'm going to be able to be quiet with myself. So choose somewhere that you can be comfortable, and that's both physically comfortable but also socially comfortable. So I've tucked myself away, so hopefully I won't get disturbed. If you're not able to get outdoors, this practice is just as relevant to indoors. And we're going to begin. So first of all, I'm going to make sure I'm physically comfortable, but it's absolutely fine for me to move during my practice if my physical position becomes a distraction. And then I'm going to just be aware of how I'm holding my body. Change anything that feels uncomfortable, and then allow my eyes to close. And for this first phase of the practice, we're going to listen to our environment. Begin that process by being aware of where your ears are on your body. Sensing them with your other senses. And then really focusing in on the sense of hearing. Rather than simply just picking up sounds, actually be aware of receiving the sounds. As much as you're able to, be aware of the sense of listening happening in your body. And then whatever environment you're in, you'll begin to notice that some sounds are closer and some sounds are further away. Explore that idea. Listen out for those background sounds. For those further away sounds. In my space, I'm sensing a distant movement of trees, possibly the sound of water or waterfall or stream. I'm aware of the sound of a forest vehicle. So I'm going to take a couple of minutes without speaking so that you can explore your distant sounds, and then also moving through the middle sounds and the closer sounds. move on to noticing those momentary sounds, so the sounds that aren't constant. In the forest, the most obvious one is the call of birds, which you can just let be a background noise, but if you listen carefully you can distinguish individual calls. Also, there's the occasional sound of a cyclist, because I know I'm within about 25 metres of an off-road cycle track, and the occasional sound of a distant road. But that kind of in and out momentary sound. So with your sense of listening and your awareness now, for the next minute or so, just see what you can pick out in the momentary sounds around you. If you feel that you develop a sense of urgently seeking or searching, see if you can let that go and be more with a sense of floating, watchful awareness for what might come, what might not come. This process isn't a test, it's just a sense of being and observing. As I listen, I'm aware of layers of birdsong, some quite persistent long calls, but underneath that some sharper, shorter, smaller calls. It's a very still, windless day today. So there's no movement in the branches around me. But occasionally there is distant sounds of movement in the very tops of trees some distance away. We're going to change focus from the sense of sound, which you don't have to completely leave behind, but we're going to bring our attention more into our body, either for those of you who struggle with the sense of sound or just for a shift of awareness, but also maybe if you're in a place where you don't have such rich sounds to draw from. Doesn't mean you can't do the awareness of hearing practice, but we're going to focus on our bodily awareness of where we are in space. And I'm going to talk you through a guided mindfulness exercise or meditation on that. And first of all, we're simply going to be aware of where our body is and how it feels, with no particular focus. But then a short while in, I'm going to ask you to bring your fingers together like so. So just index finger to thumb and then each one in turn. One hand first and then the other. And I just wanted to show you that because I'm going to suggest that, unless you prefer not to, that you do this practice again with your eyes closed, and so you won't be able to see what I'm describing. So it's just easier. So we'll be doing one hand and then the other hand much more slowly than that. But that is what I'm describing, and we'll have hands resting probably on knees. So I will be doing that, but it's likely that your focus is going to be on your practice and not on what's on the screen right now. If you need to move, now is a good time to move. If you don't need to move, that's completely fine. Close your eyes if you're comfortable to close your eyes. And we're going to notice first of all the parts of our body that are touching the chair or floor beneath us. I'm going to describe assuming that you're in a seated position of some kind, but you might be lying down. The general principles, no matter the position that you're in, stay the same. So in a seated position, the place that's taking the most weight is across our sitting bones. So allow yourself to notice the contact of your body against whatever you're sat on. Feel the temperature of it. Feel the weight distribution. Are you leaning to one side or another? And perhaps if you're not on an uneven forest floor, then you can even yourself up as much as is comfortable. And then move on to your legs. And if you're sat with your feet on the floor, notice the weight of the feet. Notice any and all parts of your legs that are in contact with the ground or support that you're using. Overall, be aware of the position of your legs, the shape that they've taken. Come back to your sitting bones, come back to that heavy foundation point, and then working up from there. Notice the sides of the waist, the sides of the trunk. See that your shoulders feel comfortable. If you find that you're holding them in a tense position or a position that's not comfortable, adjust as needed. Try to have your hands and your forearms supported somewhat so that they're resting. You can feel the heaviness of the arms release down from the shoulders to the elbows, and then their weight is held by perhaps your legs or the floor beneath them. Finally, in this preparation phase, notice how you're holding your head. If you feel that you've dropped it forwards or backwards, or in some way it's slightly uneven, perhaps you notice tension in your neck. You can move. Otherwise, simply be aware of how you're holding your head. Be aware that you're holding your head. Be aware of your face and the facial features. Let go of any tension you find in your face, any echo of the last expression that you had, any reflection of a desire to concentrate or do the right thing. Sometimes that can come out in a furrowed brow or a tense squeezing of the eyes, or a pushing of the tongue against the teeth or the roof of the mouth. All of these are really common habits that we hold in our facial muscles, but that we can also choose to let go once we become aware of them. Bring calmness and passivity, a lack of action, to your face. Now we're going to narrow our focus down to our hands. And you're going to work with your non-dominant hand. So what that means is if you're right-handed, you'll work with your left hand first. If you're left-handed, you'll work with your right hand first. And the reason for that is simply that we're usually slightly less well connected and aware and slightly less habitual in our non-dominant hand, which for me is my left hand, than we are in our dominant hand, which is the one that takes over and naturally reaches out for things and is more, in some ways, automatic. So focus all of your awareness on that non-dominant hand, which I'm going to say left, but for you it might be right. So feel the weight of that hand resting. Notice the shape that it's in right now. Sometimes when it's rested for a long time, it can be hard to be aware of the shape. So if you want to just stretch or gently move the fingers to be aware of where they are in space, you can do that. It's also very normal that some fingers feel more accessible to your imagination and your awareness than others. Now we're going to move through those finger motions. So we're going to bring the index finger and the thumb together so that we can feel the touch of one against the other. You can feel the pad of the index finger against the pad of the thumb. And you can explore one or both sensations of either a pressure, a pressing, or a stroking, feeling of the skin against skin, or simply that contact of pad against pad. So actually three, or any sense of touch between the two fingers. There's no rules here. Whatever your imagination and your awareness seems to grasp onto most easily, is most curious about, use that. So that's the index finger and the thumb, exploring the sense of touch against one another. Let them rest. And then come to bring the middle finger and thumb together. Again, explore however instinctively feels right to you. Trying at this stage to narrow down your sensory world to just these sensations between two digits, between the thumb and the finger. Working without assumptions that we know exactly how this works. Of course you do, you use your hands all the time. But this moment, this touch, this sensation is fresh and only happens for this fleeting moment. And that's what we hope to be able to experience and engage with and be with. Let those fingers rest. And then bring your ring finger and thumb together. Again, exploring the sense of touch between them. If and when your attention is drawn elsewhere, know that that is a very normal part of practice. That's why this is called a practice and not a perfection. Without self-blame or judgment, simply bring yourself back to those sensations of the finger against the finger, of the sense of touch. Allow those fingers to rest. These moments of rest between the fingers help us notice the change that movement and lack of movement have. So right now you've worked with all except one of the fingers on your non-dominant hand, and you may be able to notice the difference, the sense of tingling or extra life in those fingers you've worked with, especially the recent ones. And the little finger that we're yet to move may be quite invisible to what you can feel, or certainly more dull. Bring it into life by moving it now. Move it towards the thumb. Bring it together. Fill your sensory world with that touch. these few moments there is nothing else. When you're ready, let that hand be at rest. Now you know, because I explained the exercise, that we're going to move on to the second hand now. But try not to rush through into the future. Rest, reflect. Notice the difference between the two hands now. As I just mentioned about the fingers that we had and had not worked with, you may notice that on a larger scale between the fingers that have moved, or the hand that has moved and the hand that has not. It often feels bigger when we've been paying attention to one hand, and the second hand that has rested has gone into the shadow, has slightly disappeared, it's very still. In some ways, our mind has forgotten that it's there. This is the power of attention. What we focus on becomes bigger, more alive, and what we don't focus on recedes. Powerful lesson for life. So now we are going to bring our attention and movement to that second hand. So whichever your second hand is, when you're ready, bring movement to the whole hand. Just open it out, bring it to life, stretch it, move it as you wish. Perhaps nothing too abrupt or quick, but bring that life and let the hand rest. And then I'm going to speak less on this side so that there is more space for your experience. But we're going to go through the fingers in exactly the same way as we did on the first side. So first of all, we'll bring the thumb and the index finger together. And this time I'm just going to speak to keep a pace to the exercise at the beginning and end of each finger. When you're ready, let those fingers part and rest. Take that moment of pause and then bring the middle finger and the thumb together on your second hand. Allow them to find each other and then explore that sense of touch between them. Let those fingers rest. When you're ready, let the hand rest. And then at your own pace, bring the thumb and the ring finger together. Allow those fingers to rest. Now you may be aware that the next finger is the last finger in this exercise, But if you've noticed your mind jumping ahead, gently ask it to come back to now. Perhaps you didn't notice that, but if that is your habit, come back, pause, be now, not in the future, not at the end. A few more moments. When you're ready, then we'll bring the fingers together. Let the fingers part, let the fingers rest. See what you notice different about the two hands now. Have they swapped roles? Has the hand that we've worked with more recently become the hand that's aware to you, the hand that's more easily accessible to your senses? Next, we're going to bring in some small movements. Keep your eyes closed if you're happy to do that. Move the hands and arms to bring them back to a more normal, everyday sense of awareness. Maybe move your legs. Just shift your weight slightly. Turn your attention back to those sounds around you, moving back into a different part of our sensory world now. No particular focus, just allowing yourself to now move outwards with your awareness. Be aware of the outside world. It comes back to be part of what we're paying attention to. When you feel ready to let the sense of sight come back, bow your head towards the floor. Or if you're laid on the floor, turn to the side so that when you open your eyes, you just have a small view of your lap, of the floor. And then raise your head. Take in your surroundings. Be back out in the world. Just a few more moments to be grateful for the time and luxury of the space we've had to practice today. Wherever you've been in the world, you've been able to be with yourself for a few minutes, and that's one of the greatest luxuries that we have. Thank you.